Good day, everybody. This is Yin Yang in California with Morsels of a Thought, number 1633. We are reading the Highwayman edition of The Dirt Merchants by Henning Morales. It's a novel, it's a coming of age adventure, it's a triumph, and it's a true story. We are on page 145. Can't hear you, shouted Banda, strutting. It's your own fault if you have the wrong place or wrong attitude. Good. Now, at first, your ignorance on fire, and you'll get 1 in 5 sales. Once you get your good average, will get to around 1 in 3. Once you get good, your average will get to around 1 in 3. But vets remember that a new guy can beat you if he works faster and longer. If I'm new and I see 150 people, I'll beat you if you only saw 60. That's how guys like Spencer and Teddy, Clay, and even Timmy put up bigger numbers than some of you vets when they were only weeks into the business. They just didn't know any better. And one last warning, vets, don't get too cool for school. Stay excited, stay positive. Even though you can close with your eyes closed, don't let down on your attitude or enthusiasm. You're setting a bad example and you're leaving money on the table. Get fired up. Chapter 21, Shattered. Friday, May 11th. The guys were particularly rowdy on the balmy Friday morning in Lodi. They were all going for big days. A couple of the guys from the Long Island office hit 70 sales the Friday before. The place was buzzing. For weeks now, Spencer and Timmy Travern were planning the attack. Timmy was amazing in the field. He had outstanding charisma. He was still considered new, having been in for 3 months, but could hold his own with any of the vets. He was 6'3" with long blonde hair, blue burning eyes. He was 22. The problem was his volatile moodiness. He had a bad temper, and when triggered, displayed a hoodlum attitude. Sometimes he would take it out on his customers, sometimes on the guy he was riding with. He would blow out trainees and rooks too soon without giving them proper time to develop. He would even try and blow out the vets. He even got in Jim's face from time to time. The general rule is not to send 2 hitters out in the same vehicle. The general rule is not to send out 2 hitters in the same vehicle. Sending out 2 hitters on a Good Friday would generate 50 sales. Sending out a hitter and a rookie could get you 40. 2 rooks working together, maybe 20, maybe 10, maybe even a bagel. A team of rooks were prone to blowing off the day, going to the movies instead of work, or disappearing with merch. A bagel would be a 0. The math was simple. 2-hitter vehicles produced almost twice as much as 2 hitters in the same vehicle. Ooh. Not only that, if you match up the hitters, what do you do with all those flea rookies? Timmy was a hitter but was reprimanded so many times he couldn't be trusted to go out with the rooks. Some of the hitters couldn't risk Timmy blowing their attitude and ruining their day, and thus were reluctant to ride with him. Spencer always got along with Timmy and was responsible for retraining him a few times. Retraining happened when a new guy made major errors like not showing up for a few days, getting high in the fields, or coming back with embarrassing numbers and had to be trained all over again. The 18-year-old had developed a knack of building rapport and then leading just about anyone, even the older vets. Spencer knew that Timmy was a hitter. He also knew that because he was under reprimand, he was basically relegated to the status of a rook. Not only would they be allowed to ride together even though they were both hitters, they could position themselves for a huge day. I think if I take Timmy out again. We can get his attitude right, boss. We work together. We work good together, boss. We're good, man. We move a lot of merch. Problem is, Timmy ain't ready to train. He already slid backward on the famous board twice, Spencer said, pointing to the board. Spencer was at the top position on the board, executive office trainee, with only Cuddy and Gino ahead of him. Once he completed the top level, he would open his own deal. He had the full 6,000 saved. Timmy would was wallowing toward the lower middle of the board. Manager trainee, very underrated. Spencer continued sarcastically. Furthermore, he paced back and forth, mocking how a lawyer would talk in court. Jim laughed heartily at the kid. No joke, boss. We're going for the record today. Kenny and Gino's record, the company record, Jimbo, and we're not going to be cockroaches and hit 93, not even 100. We're going for 110. Just to prove to you little old ladies, there's no doubt who's number one in this company. 3 minute mile, Timmy added. Spencer knew he was as good as those guys and wasn't intimidated. He also had the secret weapon, a guy he could ride with that could close like him, a guy that could keep up with him, a guy he didn't need to push to get going. Spencer knew that if he could drop 50 with a rookie, which he'd done several times, he could hit 110 with a clone. The company record was 92 sales, held by Gino and Kenny, achieved about a year and a half earlier. Since the record had been set, no one had even hit 70 until just the week before. One, out of the 600 people currently working for the company in 13 offices and the thousands who had worked there in the past 3 years, that record stood and seemingly it could never be broken. One of the reasons the record stuck was that there wasn't enough room in the vehicle for the merch needed to sell that much. So, getting to those sales numbers required reloading in the middle of the night, which usually cost a couple of precious hours. In addition, the only one that could do the reload was the boss, which meant paging him in the middle of the night, interrupting whatever he was doing and having him drive to the warehouse and meet there. Plus, the boss has to be in town and be willing to do it. The sales vehicle fleet was comprised of a strange collection of trainee vehicles, usually in good shape, vet vehicles, usually beaters, rental cars in worse and worse condition depending on how long they had been on the job, and a couple of company vans. The guys had to the guys had to compete for the best vehicles. Having a van was a big plus. Usually 50 sales required a van fully loaded up. There were only so many vans. Spencer had been in full charge of one for a while now, one of the perks of being number three man in the office. The two would have to convince Jim to load the van up with enough merch for 60 sales and then convince him to be interrupted at whatever hour necessary to reload it for a 50 sale run. We are reading the Highwayman edition of The Dirt Merchants by Henning Morales. It's a triumph, a true story, a coming of age adventure, and it is a novel. We are doing 1,633 consecutive days for me today. In addition, there had to be a high trust level. Only so many guys would be trusted with several $1,000s worth of merch. Jim and Spencer had the highest of trust levels. It was 100% both ways, all earned. Let 'em try it, Jim, said Kenny with a big goofy smile on his face. They won't even come close. In fact, I'll throw in $100 bet to make it interesting for me. Jim and Kenny both wore well-tailored Armani suits, freshly starched white French cuff shirts, and Italian silk ties knotted tightly. It looked comical. All these greaser blue-collar types with ripped jeans, scruffy beards, and long hair running in and out of an office and meeting with these two polished, clean-cut guys. Kenny's office was down the street. He'd been promoted out of Jim's office just as Spencer started almost a year earlier, so they had never worked together. Kenny was legendary and for some reason spending a lot of time back at Jim's office. He is always smiling really big. What a great attitude. You vets always talk about the good old days. You had less variety to move and moved more of it, said Timmy in a whiny voice. The new guys coming in today are spoiled fleas and have no persistence. Blah, blah, blah. You don't even work at this office anymore, Kenny. Can you even bet guys in this office? Is that allowed? Calm down, man. Jim lit into Timmy, barking. Yeah, of course he can. You don't need to take the bet, you losers. Show some respect for the man. Remember, he holds the record. He's already running his own deal. What you got, Timmy? What you got? You got any juice? You got the burning desire? Prove it, Flea. Jim was quick and rude. He laughed. Everyone laughed. Spencer just smiled. He knew it was on. As soon as the laughter died down, he answered, We'll bet you on breaking your record. That's 93 sales. And I want to bet you in the pit in front of our guys. Deal? You cocky punk. Ha ha. Spencer's crazy, Kenny said, all smiles. Yeah, yeah, good, okay. Jim laughed at Kenny and added, You big goober. The sales reps at American wholesalers kept whatever they could get from their customers over wholesale, but that was only the beginning. The boss offered numerous extreme incentives to motivate the guys, and on Fridays, all hell would break loose. Here's how the extra cash broke down for this Friday. There were bonuses for hitting certain sales levels. There were bonuses for being number one in sales for the day. That is where the similarity with any other business ended. The rest of this was bizarre and probably illegal. There were bets between two-man teams riding together on which could outperform the other. The teams collectively or individually could bet other teams that they wouldn't hit certain numbers, goals, or quotas. Every kind of bet wasn't only allowed, but encouraged by the boss. The teams egged each other on to encourage bets, calling each other cockroaches and such. The guys had to be careful who they called out. Lose enough bets, and a guy could wind up working all day and night and wind up losing hundreds of dollars. There was no welching. Jim backed up every bet made with his own cash. He would then collect from the person making the bet after the fact. If one of the boys felt good that day, he would prove it by betting against another team. The boss could also match bets you made with other teams to motivate both teams to try and win. There were bets with the boss that you wouldn't hit a certain level of sales. If a team were going for a certain sales level and the boss wanted to push even further, he would bet that team that they couldn't hit that number. In the end, he knew what he was doing. He was making $10 a sale. At 50 sales, that's $500. Five of those teams hit those numbers. That's 2,500 profit for the day. Add in the rooks and stragglers, and the boss was making 5 or 6 thousand on an average Friday. What does he care if he loses some bets and pays some bonuses? Not only that, he gets to recoup some of what he's paying from the other guy's betting. Plus, motivating one guy to produce inspires the next guy to sell more. Then there was the poker game. Each team of two received a quota from the boss. This was the number he thought the team should hit based on the talent of the team and the day of the week. The better the talent riding together, the higher the quota. The better the day of the week, the higher the quota. Teams that hit their quota got 5 cards in a poker hand. For every sale over the team's quota, the team received an additional card. The more cards you had, the better chance you had of getting the better poker hand. The better the day, the higher the prize. Fridays were always the biggest. The pit was rowdy and loud as hell. The cheering got louder and louder as everyone got their cars loaded up for a huge day. The word had gotten out about Spencer and Timmy's going for the record. It was hush hush until they got to the warehouse to load up. You guys are going for what? Asked Frankie, part-time warehouse manager, full-time merch mover, wisecracking. The boys are going to be waiting in line to bet you guys. You can't back down. Hope you know what you're doing. Timmy said, just sign off on the consignment sheet, will ya? We ain't got time for this. We got to get the show on the road. License to steal, baby. Call me Timmy Bond, baby. Pipe down, Timmy boy. You should act more like Spencer. Play it cool. The only way you can pull this off is the only way you can pull this Pull the only way you can pull this off is if he carries you, man, said Frankie, feeling a little sorry for Spencer, but willing to bet him anyway. License to steal, baby, license to steal, Timmy said, tightening the bandana on his head and signing his copy of the consignment sheet. Frankie ripped the triplicate for him and handed Timmy his copy. Timmy belted out, license to steal, all morning long. Spencer didn't like it much, as it implied that the merch movers were ripping off customers. Some of the guys felt that way. Spencer didn't. He really didn't care, though. He knew Timmy needed to be focused and motivated. He has himself hypnotized by that mantra, so what do I care? Frankie poked his head outside toward the coffee truck and shouted, last car, let's get into the pit. The cheers in the pit were thunderous. Guys were banging on the walls, jumping up and down, screaming at the top of their lungs. This is the Highwayman edition of the Dirt Merchants. And the speakers blasted the Rolling Stones, so divine. Spencer gathered the rest of the stragglers and made sure everyone was in the room, signaled to stop the music, and got the cheer going. He started chanting and whispering to everyone, and they followed suit. Suddenly, the entire room was bellowing a chant. Juice, get fired up! 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 The room finally quieted, followed by high fives and fist pumps. Jim waved for everyone to settle down and listen. You guys motivate me, man. Whoa, all right. For those of you that are new to Fridays, I know that you were briefed by your managers, but here's a review of the rules. First of all, on Friday, there are no first day trainees allowed. Second, most of the crews are going out on all-nighters. Start at noon today, and you have until noon tomorrow to settle up with Rose. Be smart after dark. Simple as that. Today, the winner of the poker game will receive $750. Second place is $500, and third is $300. Cheers ensued. Jim waved his clipboard in the air as he talked, pacing back and forth, and said, on Friday we take bets, and I'll back up the bets if I approve them. Also, we'll give you some additional bonuses today to make it even more interesting. You all know how the card game works. Tomorrow, when you get back to settle up, those of you that hit your quota are part of the game. The rest of you can watch and kick yourself. Maybe you'll get some motivation for next time. Bet best three hands win first, second, and third prize. The more cards you got, the more chances you have of winning. Simple. All right, here are the quotas and goals of the day. Jim went through all the guys one at a time, saving Gino and Spencer for last. Gino and Zeph are going for 50. Your quota is 35. Gino, I'll bet you 200 you'll not hit 50 sales. Gino was a typical Italian-American kid out of Clifton, a good-looking, athletic 25-year-old with jet black hair and olive oil skin. Gino smiled and responded, no, boss, not today. I'm good. Zeph is new. Can't take the chance. Can't take that chance. Booze, and a new chant began. Cockroach, cockroach. The crowd screamed as they were pointing at Gino. Gino, you're coasting, man, Jim interrupted, waving his arms. You know what Spencer's going for today? You're next in line for an office promo, and you're letting a punk show you up. Gino looked over at Spencer with a grin. Come on, man, okay, but I want to take a bet against Corrales for a C note. You want to bet Corrales that you'll beat him today? Jim asked. No, that he won't break the record, Gino responded, a bit irked. You flea, you trained Corrales, man. Bet him outright, said Jim with a disgusted look on his face. No, man, he's got Timmy. I got Zeph, a complete rook. The mob was really getting into it now. Cockroach, cockroach. Jim jumped in. All right, Corrales, you take the bet? I don't need to bet him outright because we are going to break the record. I'll take the bet, said Spencer. New chant. Juice, get fired up. Juice, get fired up. Juice, get fired up. Jim started pacing and looking at the clipboard. All right, we got Gino down for $100 at 50 and against Corrales hitting 93 pieces for 100. Anyone else want to bet on Gino? No takers? Let's get down to the stars of the day, Corrales and Traverne. Cheers! These boys are not going for the record, which has stood for over a year. Their goal is 110 sales, 17 above the record. Some of you didn't hit 17 sales all of yesterday. Jim started pointing around the room. Spencer jumped in and said, "We're going to hit 110. To prove it ain't no fluke and to make no mistake about it, that we have the record. And to make it known throughout the company that the youngest dude in the company is the best, period. I'm sick and tired of hearing about ancient history. Any of you fleas want to bet us, we'll take it." He did it, smiling big and half laughing. He did it that way to cut down on the resentment factor, but he wanted to instigate in order to guarantee more bets. More cheers. Jim resumed. "All right, I will start. Kenny already upped his bet with you guys to 200 that you wouldn't hit 93. I'll pay a $500 bonus for breaking the record, no bet. I'll bet you an additional 200 though that you'll not hit that 110, you cocky punk. Gino also bet a C note. By the way, your quota is 65. "A quota is 65? Timmy asked, incredulous. "What, Jim? No one has gotten that high a quota since I've been here. We need that card game. Card game, Jim. Only 3 guys have even hit 65 ever, and that's our quota? Come on, Jim. What are you trying to do? We need that card game." "Hey, pipe down. You guys are so confident you'll hit 110, which gives you 40 cards in the card game. None of these other guys will get more than 15 cards. You know that. That means you'll win the 750. I can lower the quota, but I'm not reloading you. Your choice. Didn't think so. 65 it is. All right. Anyone else want to bet? You vets better step up." 5 more people bet they wouldn't break the record. They didn't get anyone to do a straight up bet. It broke down as follows. No straight up bets. 7 bets for 100, they wouldn't hit 93. That's $700. 1 bet for 200, they wouldn't hit 93. $200. 1 bet for 200, they wouldn't hit 110. $200. 1 bonus for breaking the record, 500. Potential of winning the card game, 750. Even though hitter vets usually kept the majority of the money when riding with rooks, Spencer knew that at least for today, Timmy was an equal. They had agreed they would split the money. The total they could earn was $2,350 for the day, almost $1,200 each, more money than either one had made in a day in their lives. If they achieved anything less than 93 sales, they would wind up having worked 24 hours and losing $1,100 with a shot at the poker money. If they felt anything less than 65, they would lose $1,100 and have no shot at even the poker money. Although they were well aware of the math, the kids were not nervous. They knew being anxious about their performance could lead to failure. The guys busted out of the pit like those kids in Greece on the last day of school headed to the carnival. They jumped in their cars. They were off to the milk jug deli. All but Timmy and Spencer. They stopped at the Wendy's drive-thru and headed straight for their territory in Deer Park, Long Island. So we will go to the rest of this next week. The Dirt Merchants. The purpose of the morsels of a thought is to get some wisdom. Wisdom is knowing the right thing to do, and virtue is the doing of it. So let's go and get some virtue done, avoid the pitfalls, use your wisdom. Okay, old Kinderhook. Bye bye.